Gather round, Tarnished and fellow seekers of knowledge, for the tale of the lands between is a winding one, carved from the bones of gods and stitched together with the ambitions of all. And let's be honest, ambition tends to get a little messy when left unchecked, so grab your snack and get comfortable, for there's lore to be had. In this world, where towering spires touch the heavens and forgotten ruins whisper of ancient powers, the story begins in a time of light, a time when the greater will, that unseen cosmic puppet master, chose its champion, Marika. She then became Queen Marika the Eternal, with the very fate of the lands between stitched into her neatly hemmed gown. She, a being of unparalleled grace and ambition, became the vessel of divine order, which sounds probably a lot more glamorous than it felt. The Elden Ring, the cornerstone of this world's very existence, was placed in her hands, and because, of course, when you give someone unlimited power, what could possibly go wrong? With it, she ruled. The lands between prospered under her gaze in an era of harmony, built on the foundation of her will. But, as with all tales of power, the shadows crept in. The golden age that Marika created was not without its cracks, and the weight of divinity, once born with ease, began to press heavily on her shoulders. Well, I guess we've all had those days. And so, the shattering came. Marika, in a moment that would echo through the ages and still confuse historians, shattered the Elden Ring. Why? Was it rebellion against her own fate, or a desperate attempt to control it? Some say it was sorrow that moved her hand, and others say it was rage. But all that is known for certain is that the consequences were, well, cataclysmic. The divine golden order she'd worked so hard to create fell apart, and with it the lands between descended into chaos. What's that old saying? If it ain't broke, shatter it, and let's see what happens. The once glorious Elden Ring lay in pieces, and with those fragments came a new era. One defined not by peace, but by ambition, as the demigods, her children and heirs, tore the land apart in their hunger for power. And yet, amidst this delightful mess, a beacon of hope emerged. And it's here that we'll focus this tale. Miquella the Golden Child, the most beloved of Queen Marika's offspring and twin to Melania. Where his sister wielded war like a song, Miquella's weapon was far more subtle, and some might say, far more dangerous. His gift? Well, besides eternal youth, the ability to weave love out of the very air around him. He didn't conquer with force or flame, but with grace, compelling hearts to bend to his will with nothing more than a smile. His charm was not the force of kings, but a gentle guiding light that drew in even the mightiest warriors to his side. A soft power, but make no mistake, soft doesn't mean safe. He spent time in the Golden Order, probably taking notes on how not to run a divine empire before realizing the futility of it all. He couldn't accomplish what he wanted to within their ranks, and so he left. And really, who could blame him? It's hard to make friends with everyone when they're busy stabbing each other for pieces, be they giants or dragons. Instead, he sought out both his sister and his place in the world. Lovely family reunions, I'm sure. Yet even the softest power carries its own strength. Miquella's charm was a force unlike any other, a gift capable of uniting even the most bitter of foes. His influence radiated outward, bringing together lords and warriors, even those touched by darkness, to gather beneath the towering branches of the Haligtree, his creation, his sanctuary, a living testament to his vision of unity. The Haligtree, nourished by his own blood, because why plant a regular tree when you can water it with your own divine essence, stood as a symbol to his commitment to the people of the lands between. It was no mere gesture of hope. It was a declaration of a new world, where division would fade and all could find shelter beneath his grace. His followers, once lost in a fractured world of ambition and war, found themselves drawn to his dream. Here, under the boughs of the Haligtree, Miquella's love flourished and gave himself to the cause of peace. A peace built not through conquest, but through unity, through a bond stronger than mere loyalty. And indeed, to many, it felt like a divine mercy, a place where love reigned over war, and where the scars of the shattering could finally heal. Sounds like the setup for a perfect utopia, right? Hold on, friends. This is the land between, after all. But unity, as with all things in this lovely cursed realm, is fragile. And while Miquella's followers adored him, whispers lingered in the wind. Could such boundless affection truly be natural? Or was his charm a bit more than what it seemed? Onspark thought so back then, but as these things go, he too was silenced in the end. He would also come to adore this charismatic Empyrean, because how could he not? The Bewitching Branch artifact hints at his influence. It allows even the fiercest of foes to become temporary allies, bound by Miquella's will. It said that anyone touched by his grace found their heart softened, their rage tempered. A wondrous power, surely. But was the peace of Miquella promised one born of free will, or was it shaped by the subtlety of his power? Well, let's be honest for a moment. Did a single soul who encountered Miquella have free will when he was done with them? And yet no shadow could dim the brilliance of his vision. Well, maybe a few. Once again, Miquella wasn't quite accomplishing what he was trying to do. He was a visionary, sure, but the execution? That was a little trickier. But he pressed on. Miquella saw a world where war had no place, where the lands between could be whole once again. His love was true, and his vision was purish, and his followers were bound to him with unshakable devotion. The Haligtree reflected that dream, a symbol of his heart's desire, a towering embrace. It was the hope of a united realm, the realization of a world where all could live under one sky, no longer divided by greed or ambition. What could be more genuine, and what could be more beautiful? Tarnished, the answer to that lies deeper. For in the lands between, nothing is ever as simple as it seems. Honestly, between George R. R. Martin's love of complexity and From Software's habit for a twisted narrative, this is probably going to be a hell of a journey for the ages. But today, the branches of the Haligtree sway in the wind, kind of at least, and we see only the Empyrean's grace, a force that shapes this part of the world not through might, but through love. Was Miquella a savior? Or was he something far more dangerous, an Empyrean whose love bound the souls of those who followed him, leaving them unable to break free? Well, let's take a look at every poor hero we've ever seen like this and take our best guesses, shall we? In the end, Tarnished, the choice is yours to make. I'm just here to tell the tale, and the judgment, that's up to you. For as you wander the lands between seeking your own path, you too will feel the pull of Miquella's charm. But remember, in a realm where gods shatter the stars and leave others to piece them together, even the gentlest touch can leave the deepest scars. In the dark, forgotten corners of the lands between, where sunlight's more of a rumor than reality, a tale unfolds. And this is the saga of Miquella, the golden prodigy with ambitions as vast as his family's list of misdeeds. It's hard not to feel for him, really. Born into a world teetering on the edge of madness, cursed by a lineage that reads more like a list of sins than achievements, Miquella had quite the burden to carry. But in classic overachiever fashion, he wasn't content with merely surviving it. Nope, he was going to fix it all. Or try to, at least. You see, from day one, Miquella was haunted by his mother's catastrophic choices and the unfortunate consequences of his bloodline. That's enough to give anyone a complex, but rather than wallowing in all the tragedy, which would have been perfectly understandable, mind you, Miquella, being the shining optimist that he was, chose to seek redemption. Not just for himself, mind you, but for everyone shackled to the same cursed legacy. Such a modest fellow. In his pursuit, whether for ambition, for atonement, or simply to get away from his family's drama, he journeyed to the realm of shadow. It's that cheery little place where light's more of a theoretical than an actual, and everything sort of screams welcome to despair. But Miquella did find out this was the perfect place to reinvent himself. A fresh start, where he could escape all those damning judgments. Now beneath his dazzling exterior lies an Empyrean of many contradictions. Cynical, yet innocent, determined, yet weighed down by a truly staggering amount of guilt. Cynicism naturally comes from knowing how the world really works. It's hard not to develop a bit of an edge when your family's dysfunction literally threatens the fabric of reality. But this same cynicism sharpened his resolve. After all, if the world's a mess, why not clean it up, Miquella thought. Challenge accepted. And yet he never lost that innocent spark, a glimmer of childish hope, the dream that one day the world might just turn out to be alright. In some other life, Miquella would have been the one planting flowers, hoping for world peace. Except in this life, he decided to reshape reality instead. Small dreams weren't really his style. The afflicted younger brother was a prodigy after all. But counts. Now here's where things get really fun. Miquella carried enough of it to fill a great jar. The sins of his mother, the madness that plagued his lineage, his own increasingly questionable ambitions, it was not just starting to pile up. But guilt can be a wonderful motivator when used correctly, and for Miquella, it was the fire that kept him going, pushing him to seek redemption, even if it meant doing things that might make other people raise an eyebrow, or several. And then there's the enchanting aspect of Miquella's leadership, both literally and figuratively. His followers, you see, didn't just flock to him out of the goodness of their hearts. There was a bit of divine nudging involved. The charming branch, a delightful artifact imbued with Miquella's charm, pun fully intended, kept everyone working together. So long as the spell held, they were a harmonious bunch. The moment it faded, though, well, free will can be such a bother. Naturally, this raised some ethical questions. What is loyalty when it's compelled? But Miquella was far too busy trying to save the world to worry about such pesky details. Besides, who's keeping score anyways? This enchantment, while convenient, was also a reflection of Miquella himself. For all his good intentions, there was always the nagging question, how much of this was truly for the people, and how much of this was the cause that he decided was right. Take Ansbach, for instance, a former follower of Moog who switched allegiances to Miquella. He came seeking redemption only to later realize that Miquella's vision might not be all it was cracked up to be. It is always a fun day when you discover your hero is more complicated than you expected. But, like many of Miquella's followers, Ansbach stuck around, whether out of belief in the dream or because the charm hadn't entirely worn off. Okay, let's be honest, it did, but he did help us on the way and give us some answers to Miquella's intentions. And besides, how else was he going to try to take his vengeance from Moog? But Miquella was not alone. There was another half to him, a shadow that walked beside him, a figure shrouded in mystery whose connection to Miquella was far more than symbolic, and that's Saint Trina. Saint Trina, Miquella's other half, cast away in his quest for godhood. Classic tale of self-improvement, right? Sever the parts of yourself that just might hold you back. But this wasn't just a dramatic haircut. Miquella's abandonment of Saint Trina was deep. It was a spiritual rift, and he thought he was purging a part of himself that would help him ascend. Instead, it left a void, a twisted mirror reflecting what was lost in his ambition. But that's Miquella, isn't it? All ambition and ideals cloaked in golden grace, but with shadows lurking just underneath. His broken great rune stripped of power except for resisting charm stands as a symbol of his journey. He gave up everything, his strength, his radiant flesh, even his fate, to embrace something deeper, or so he believed. Whether it was an attempt at redemption or just another sin in a long list, well, the jury's still out. And then, of course, we have Radagon, the stalwart general, the one who had honor and loyalty. Miquella's promised consort, who probably had no idea what was going on half of the time, but found himself tangled in Miquella's web regardless. Their bond was complicated, to say the least. Sealed by a vow whispered in the shadows, built on the idea of a better future, this final battle, the one that seems inevitable because of Miquella's attention on him, may be more tragic than epic. As the Tarnished faces Radagon, you can't help but wonder if the general ever truly understood his role in the game. Perhaps, as his form crumbles beneath your blows, he never even realizes he was an unwilling participant all along, a silent casualty of Miquella's schemes, dragged into a conflict without ever even knowing the true stakes. As for Miquella, ever the master of manipulation, the fact that he had both Radagon and Moog in his thrall is hardly overlooked. Charming demigods? Just another day in Miquella's grand golden chessboard. But the question remains, Tarnished. How far will you go? This account is but one in the path to becoming the Elden Lord. Miquella's tale is one of charm, ambition, and let's be honest, more than a few questionable decisions. His vision for a united world seemed noble enough. Who doesn't want peace and unity? But as with all grand plans, the fine print can be tricky. However, as is often the case with visionaries, he left behind a trail of broken promises, forsaken allies, and one very dead and wilted other self. His dream, golden and glowing on the surface, was built on the backs of those he used along the way. Miquella had a habit of pulling the strings more often than not. The people around him didn't even realize they were dancing to his tune. So as you wander these strange broken lands, take a moment to reflect on Miquella's story. Whether he succeeded in saving the world or simply exchanged one set of chains for another, it's a question that lingers, like the faint light of a distant eclipse. And yes, he was brilliant. Yes, he wanted a better world. But ambition is a way of twisting even the noblest of goals. His charm might pull you in, but remember, nothing is ever as it seems here. Every light casts a shadow, and every grand vision has a darker side. In the end, it's up to you, Tarnished, to decide whether you'll follow in his footsteps or carve out a different path. But choose wisely, because in the lands between, the line between savior and pawn is never quite as clear as you'd like it to be. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing, and thanks for taking this journey with me. I can't express the gratitude I have for you listening to this tale, and while it may not be the tale of Miquella that aligns with your vision of him, this is this Tarnished's view of him. And thanks for watching. Until the next snack and story brings us together, I hope your week's great.